Hey, it's Bill again from TRC, Tampa Running Central, and we are on the eve of the 2025 FHSAA State Cross Country Championships. And as you can see, just above his head, you can see a poster from the 2016 State Champions. And as I pan around this room, I can see many memories of trophies, countless trophies from just his time at Steinbrenner. And if we go way back in the Wayback Machine to this young man, this is about the time that I met him. And who is the him that I keep referring to? Well, the him is none other than lad Baldwin. He's probably the youngest dean of cross country that we have in the state of Florida, but I think a lot of people would consider him the dean of cross country just because of his longevity and because of his success. And I have known Lad since 2004, I want to say, when we were on staff together at Gaither High School. But we're here in his classroom. Lad is a driver's ed instructor at Steinbrenner. And also, again, as I mentioned, he's one of, if not the most decorated cross-country and track and field coach, definitely the most decorated of active coaches in Hillsborough County in girls track and cross-country. I would say definitely the most decorated active coach, and maybe the most decorated coach of all time in his tenure, which started way back in when?
1989, Chamberlain High School.
My alma mater.
Yes, sir.
You were coaching in 89.
Yes.
I graduated in 83, so I always think you're a lot younger than I am, but you're not.
Yeah, I'm pretty old. I'm old. So I interned actually at Chamberlain High School and got to meet some great coaches there and great athletic directors, and they asked me to help out and take over the track and cross country programs at Chamberlain. So I had a lot of fun there for 7 years, and then I moved from there to Gaither for 12 years, and then I moved here. I've been at Steinbrenner now for 17 years, so been very blessed to be able to kind of choose, a good place to work and to coach with some great athletes and meet some fellow coaches like yourself. And I remember you and I, we put together the first rubber track in Hillsborough County, the first meter track in Hillsborough County. We raised the money, we got permission, and we had the rubber track. And then, of course, what came along with that was we got to host. We kind of came up with the American Division, National Division, Federal Division championship meets, and then we did a county championship meet, and they gave us this. Remember the timing equipment?
Oh yeah.
And it was like, anybody know how to use it? And you were like, I can do it. So Bill's doing the timing.
Why did I say that?
we're hosting the meet, and but it was our way of kind of bringing Hillsborough County. Bill Ward was impactful in that as well, saying like, hey, we have to get meter tracks in Hillsborough County, and we have to get the rubber tracks. And if now you look around the whole county, everybody ends up with a rubber track, except for unfortunately 2 schools. But it's just awesome to see kind of what's happened. And then, to come over to Steinbrenner, and I came over here, they had an asphalt track. So we once again raised track money from the University of South Florida. We did the USF Steinbrenner Invitational, raised some money, and then we came over here and put another rubber track down at Steinbrenner. And then we continued to host our Steinbrenner Invitational. So we've done 17 years of the Steinbrenner Invitational. And of course, then I do the county championship cross country meets. I've done that for 22 years, I think now, where we host that. And we've hosted that at Alapez Park, and we've hosted it at Lake Park and Idlewild. We did it for a year, and Mary Helper Christian Center now. So just every year just rolls on, and I'm excited to do it and still be sitting here to tell you about it a little bit.
So, as a lot of coaches would tell you that are long tenured, there comes that year that happens upon us and we think this is the last year. I'm I'm done. I'm gonna spend more time with family. I'm pretty much done with this. And I know for me in the past, I had come to that point, and then there was that runner, there was that freshman, there was that sophomore that you're like, no, I don't want to leave them. I'm going to see this through to at least their senior year. Have you ever gotten to that point, or have you just always decided I'm going to just keep doing this until I just can't do it anymore?
I think I'd say I'm loyal to a lot of things in my life, and I just feel like that's who I am, and it's my job to be, at a high school trying to coach. I think what keeps it exciting as well is hosting. We host the invitationals, we host the county championship cross country meets. I'm real active with the scheduling meetings and different things, and just putting certain things together and being kind of like a go-to contact person. I started officiating as well, just to make sure that we were, so everybody around us is officials. And so if you're a meet director, you also want to be an official. You also want to, be a coach the best you can. And then you start giving up a little bit of the coaching and saying, hey, let's get some young coaches in here and see if we can, develop some of them and give them an opportunity. And that's been rewarding in many ways too, of just, looking around and seeing some younger coaches that, that I've been a part of, just helping them get a start.
So I'm gonna give you time to think about this. I'm gonna come back to it. I'm gonna ask you your 3 most memorable athletes from across your coaching career, but we're gonna come back on that question. Let's talk about this current crop of Steinbrenner Warriors that you have going into the state meet, which will be this Saturday up at the ARP. Depending if you're looking at a virtual meet, a cross-country list, a best across the season, you're probably somewhere within the top 10. Now, in 16, you won the state championship. What has been your highest finish since 16 at the state meet?
8th place.
8th place.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that might be something to shoot for. And if you look at where everybody's at and the way your girls are running this time of the year, that's probably a possibility to finish in the top 8. Might be something to shoot for. I don't know, does your top runner, which would be Madison or Blake?
Blake just threw down 18:23 and Madison was 18:33. Madison's been our number 1 all year except for the region meet, but I think they'll both do well. The goal will be hopefully top 20 for both of them.
So maybe a podium spot with a Warrior on it?
That would be a great scenario. That'd be a great situation.
See, he's a very thoughtful coach. He did not want to answer that question right out with, yeah, that's the plan, like a lot of coaches would. He thinks about what he's doing, which, again, a lot of coaches, when they're talking about their athletes, are just going to jump in and really hype them up and pump them up, maybe beyond the point of reason. But I think what has made Ladd as successful as he has been throughout his career as a coach and an organizer is he thinks through everything. He really does. And I know that from experience from putting on meets with him, being his timer, being his announcer, just being somebody that he bounces ideas off of. He's always thinking. And I think that goes a long way when it comes to being successful. So I've given you a few minutes to think about that question. You thought I was going to give you longer, but at the risk of offending any of yours, I know you've coached some great athletes over the years, but give me your top 3 Chamberlain, Gaither, Steinbrenner athletes that you've coached.
Wow,
and why?
This is tough. So my background would be I started with boys and girls cross country and girls track, and then I've basically always been a girls track coach, and then I pop back in and out of if they need me to help them with the cross country. Like the very first year here at Steinbrenner, I did boys and girls cross country also, and then we just start bringing in more people to help out. 4 years ago, they needed me to be the boys track coach, so I was the boys and the girls track coach here, and we started developing our boys program. I just felt like in track we needed a little more speed at the track always had great kids for cross country that loved distance running, but I don't think we did that well in the state meet. So we started thinking about, how do we get a little more turnover, a little more speed with our cross country kids and have them be competitive in the 16s and the 32s. So I've enjoyed kind of helping mold the boys program. We do have 2 state champions here at Steinbrenner, Alexis Wright. If you go back to the early stages of Steinbrenner, and she was an elite hurdler and jumper, and she's a doctor now. She's just graduated med school and just sent me a beautiful picture. So I think she stands out. Amanda Quick was an elite runner and just loved the sport so much, and was also one of my neighbors. And so I've known Amanda since she was in 6th grade. And the great story about Amanda Quick, Heidecker, who now is basically in charge of all the parks in the art course up there in Tallahassee, is she would help me set up the county championships here in Hillsborough County. So her dad would say, pick her up in the morning. She's homeschooled. You can pick her up. You can take her with you to Lake Park. She'll help you set up the course. And then, of course, she was an incredible runner. Went to FSU on a scholarship, and then started working up there. Has just done amazing. And there's so many.
There's so many.
There's so many. Jenny Textera's name pops up. She was an elite pole vaulter for us and ran cross country and pole vaulted, and came back and coached, got on our coaching staff with us. Those are the kind of things that I love to think about. Just developing, meeting a kid and not knowing where their direction they're going. She's a medical school now. She's up in Pennsylvania. So there's just multiple kids in my mind. Dara Altman's name pops in. She was a 2-time state champion for us at Gaither when I coached there. Jabari Armstrong was a state champion that ran here for us at Steinbrenner in the 110 hurdles. And just there's some amazing kids, and there's so many of them that I don't
you can't say, I don't want to forget anybody, because you're going to forget, because there's so many.
There's so many, and there's so many great teams and great experiences. And there's been a few times, actually, in my coaching career that I looked around and the whole team was happy. I think that's the exciting thing, is you're like, everybody's happy. Everybody ran well. Everybody, was successful that day. And that's tough sometimes, especially in track or cross country. So, a big highlight obviously is the group behind me, the state championship in cross country, just knowing that they ran so well and they ran for each other. And we had so many different, from the seniors to the freshmen, just trying to mesh them and put them together, and then beat Winter Park, which was a very successful cross country program at the time. So that was a pretty incredible year. And then the highlight with the championship of that. I do think about when it's time. I went through 9 different, eye surgeries with the detached retinas, and the COVID time, and you're just thinking, some coaches gave up, and it kind of changed lives at that point. And I guess this is who I am. I'm a coach, I'm a teacher, I'm an official, I'm a meet director. A lot of that goes back to my dad was a Morale, Welfare, and Recreation Director. So he was in charge of the golf courses and the gyms and the weight rooms and all the just anything that had to do with the direction of the fitness of the Air Force bases.
It's in your blood.
And I was just around that a lot, and I just try to, I see him in a lot of things I do, so I think that's kind of how I got started. And someone asked me to coach track, and I did, and then they asked me to coach cross country, and then I did, and then it just became, who I was. And I try to be a good mix of the trying to hold the the Nash Higgins and the Manuel Griffin Fondor for relays, and you want to keep that in place because a lot of people don't realize the history of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool to kind of always think about that, and then just anything new we can do. Coming up with the Vernon Corn county championship meet, and that was something that we started. You and I started over there at Gaither. So that was exciting. But on to this week, we got a good group of kids, and because of helping with the boys track and field team or being the head coach for the boys team, we've got some really good boys cross country runners now as well. So we're excited about our boys teams up there, and I think they're going to do really well. And so I've been able to watch and coach these guys for the last 3-4 years, and Luca's going to have a good day up there, and Jack's going to have a good day, and I think Blake and Maddie and Ainsley are going to run incredible, and it's going to be a good experience for everybody up there.
So winning is obviously fun. I mean, it makes doing what we do, it makes doing what they do more fun. I mean, they would, they'd be lying if they didn't say, yeah, it's a lot funner to win than it is to lose. That's why we do what we do. Mm-hmm. But there are other benefits that these kids are going to get from what we're able to teach them. I should stop saying we, because I'm not really a coach anymore. Once a coach, always a coach, but you're in the middle of the fire 100%. So my question is, 30 years from now, what do you want a former athlete to come up to you and say to you? How were you impactful to them as their coach when they were in high school?
I think it's just the loyalty. I want them to feel like they were a part of something that we were there for them, and they always felt like they had someone that supported them and they could trust and they could lean on. And I still am very close to kids from my very first couple of years of, and they have their own families, and I've had parents that have kids now that run for me, so I think it's just that loyalty factor of family. It's kind of like, hey, he's always been there for us and we can count on him. I get in my driver's ed world, sometimes I get kids that will yell at me. They're 35-year-old men, and they'll yell at me and, hey, you taught me how to drive, coach. Just something like that. Like you were just a small part of them growing up, and something that was a special time for them, because it is a short period of time. For us, maybe we're thinking it's been 30 years plus, but for the kids, it's been that 3-4 years of being part of something, and hopefully they can look back and say, hey, that was a big part of my life, and I felt as like family. I think is as simple as I can put it.
What would be your top 3 things to tell a brand new coach that was just getting ready to start his first season? What would be the 3 Baldwin words of wisdom, Baldwinisms?
Just 3 words.
Or 3 things.
Patience always seems to come out, and that could be just the fact of being a coach and a driver's ed teacher. It's like the patience of letting things develop. It's not going to happen overnight. It's just something that you have to be there. They have to know that you're committed to them. You can't ask them to do anything that you haven't, laid out. So if you want them to have, morning practices, then you got to be at morning practice. So it's just one of those things that they need to know that you're there, you're committed to them, and the patience as a coach will help you develop. And then can you have fun with it all the time? I would go home, Bill, and I would say, what's one good thing today that I can take home and say, this was great today? Because there might be a few things that are a negative. So always try to find something that went well that day, something that was a positive, and build on that. Be patient with the overall, and embrace it. That's who you are. And the kids realize that, hey, you're the coach, and this is how things work. And so I don't know if that ended up being 3 or more, but
I think I could piece 3 into that.
yeah, I think so. You know.
So 1989 to 2026, that's 37 years if my math is right. So in 3 years, we'll be having that 40th anniversary party for you and finding some of those Chamberlain runners, some of those Gaither runners. I know the Quick sisters would come to something like that, but that's what we're looking at. 40 years of coaching tenure. I mean, that's up there. I know there, aside from maybe Brent Haley over at, that used to be at Largo, and I think he's at Northeast now. I don't know of any other Hillsborough County coaches that have been at it that long. Gary Bingham at King has been coaching for 20
Gary's
plus.
been for a while. Yeah.
But
Bill Strack's been around for a while.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I just remember going to those meetings and I'd be sitting around the room, looking around the room, you know, and then just like, I got to learn. I got to just, you know, there's so much you have to know. And then a few years later saying like, oh, I think I know a lot now. And I think I can help out, and I can be one of those people. And then you get to a point. It's like, where are the new coaches? You know, and who's preparing the new coaches, and how are they learning, and what's going on? And you know, athletic directors, they don't necessarily know track and field. They know a lot of things. You know, with a lot of different sports. But you know, who is helping our younger coaches develop, and you know, how are they staying in the game? I think the sports changed too. A little bit. Cross country is still the team bonding, the fun thing, but a lot of individual, you know, accomplishments can come out of running. So that's why they give out the medals to the top group, individuals. And then track, now we have 18 different events, so you better be good at 18 different events, and you got to be able to manage and you know, put the kids in the right events at the right time.
Well, maybe after those 40 years of coaching, maybe you start the Baldwin School of Coaching. And train up these. I know you've had a lot of coaches come through the halls of Gaither and Steinbrenner that are now coaches at other programs or have been. And so that, I think that's the ultimate compliment is, you know, how many of your proteges are out there in the coaching world. And there's definitely a number of them out there carrying on what you've taught them, the patience, the find something positive, and to embrace what it is that you're doing and really make it part of who you are instead of just something that you do.
Right.
I think that's important. And I know in your life there's other things that define you that are way more important than track and field and cross country. But I'm also certain that some of those things come out. Yeah, some of those things will come out. Maybe not, you know, overtly and directly, but I know that you do bring some of your beliefs into the ways that you do what you do. I know, I'm sure that's a fact, and that's important. And you have to do it in this environment. You have to do it a certain way, or you won't be doing it anymore.
True.
Unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I know that's a very important part of your life.
It is, and I think it really, just sitting here thinking about it, it basically just is a way of honoring your mom and dad, and the, you know, what they did for you, and the people they were, and the things they instilled in you, you know. And it's like you want them, you know, to be proud of you. You don't want to do something where it's like, wow, my mother would not be happy with me. So I've learned a lot, and I've learned a lot of things that I don't want to do, and I don't want to be a certain way from other coaches as well. You know, you're always just learning, and you're just overwhelmed with a lot of things, and it's kind of like you go, I don't want to be like that, or I'm not going to be like this, or that's not going to be part of our program. So I think that's just part of your upbringing and growing up. My dad being a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, you know, this is the way it was, this is the rules. Being a driver's ed teacher, there's a lot of rules. You know, sport and coaching, you know, let's have some rules, let's have some boundaries. And I just think, you know, being married for 38 years.
Well, you better get that right.
You know, I know. So it's like, those are the things that you commit to, and, you know, and that's part of your life. You know, that's what you do every day, everything you do. whether it's cross country or track or your marriage or teaching, so I think that's a big part of kind of who I am and how I do things.
Married 38 years, coaching 37. She's had to put up with a lot. She's had to endure, and obviously she's had to support you in a special way.
Yes.
Yes. That's because I remember those late nights where we didn't get out of there till 11 o'clock at night, and then I didn't hit the pillow till 1 because I'm going through those results and making sure that we had, everything to send up to Gainesville for districts and regions.
And then we got up at 5 the next morning and started over again.
Yeah. Those were the good old days.
I know for sure.
I am grateful for technology and the way it's grown and changed. It's not quite like that anymore, but I would say the dean of Hillsborough County track and cross country, that usually goes to who are the older coaches. You think about Wes Newton has been doing it forever at Wharton. Wes was a coach at Lato when I ran for Chamberlain back in the 80s. He's definitely one of the deans as far as longevity, but I would say the dean as far as just leading the way in organizing events, directing meets, directing championships, really spearheading efforts to make sure that cross country and track continue to flourish. Because having traveled the state to time and announce the past few years, I've seen that that's not necessarily the case in other areas of our state. It's not flourishing. It's not growing. And I think that we're very fortunate here in Hillsborough County to have you kind of leading the way. And I know that the younger coaches and some of the mid-range coaches look to you for guidance, for ideas, for direction. And we're definitely fortunate to have you here in Hillsborough County.
Well, I appreciate that. And we are fortunate to have you and your interest about, the sport. You were a great runner growing up in high school and college, and then you just love it so much you wanted to be around the sport with coaching, and that's how you and I got together at Gaither, through coaching and cross country and the track world, and then just trying to time that first county championship and those cameras and districts and regions over there that we put on, and then here you are 25 years ish later,
still timing,
still
trying to get it right,
doing what you love. And I do enjoy the younger coaches that I've been around, and I've known them for a while, and I just have a good feeling with them as far as that they can come to me and we can bounce ideas back and forth, and because it is pretty demanding on everybody's time and energy, and we're all competitive. Roger Mills, I think, says it really well. He's like, we're really competitive and I want to beat you. He goes, but I acknowledge when you're doing great, and I acknowledge when somebody else is doing something great. And, I texted a coach the other day that beat us, and I said, man, you really did a great job this year. And I was laughing because I was kind of like, he beat us by a couple points, and I was like, I just got to acknowledge it because he had his team ready and they ran really well. So sometimes you just have to reach out and do that.
Well, those are the coaches that are still coaching. The coaches that would get beat by 2 points and hold that grudge, they're not going to last because just they don't have the temperament. And like you said, one thing, patience. Patience will be there. They'll come back around. You may not have a team going to states for 3 seasons, but you just keep doing what you've done and you'll get what you got in the past. You just got to have that right mix. And you always seem to find a way to have that right mix. Because again, if I just kind of pan around the room here in his classroom, there's trophies from 2004 on up, and that doesn't include his Gaither trophies, which are obviously at Gaither. But
we did quite well at Chamberlain too.
Chamberlain.
That's where I fell in love with it, at Chamberlain, when I was able to just it was started with track, and I had 4 girls and just got to move around, the lights come back on. And they all wanted to run the 400 meters. And I said, 1 second, let's see.
Pasting.
So
So the lights went out, but not in Lad's coaching brain. The lights are never off. He's at 3 a.m. He probably jolts up out of bed and thinks about an idea about something, and
I do actually.
that's just how he is, and that's why he has been doing this for almost 40 years. And again, on the eve of the 2025 state cross country championships, the next year will be the 10th anniversary from his last state championship. But my thinking is it may not be his last state championship. That will be the goal, to continue to build. And how many seniors do you have? I know you have Ainsley.
Brooke, and Adia are seniors.
So we have 3 seniors graduating. The rest of the girls are coming back. So
Yeah.
who knows what else is going to be added to these trophies and how soon they're going to be added. But one thing is certain, it's going to be another year on his coaching belt, and another year of sharing what he knows with those younger coaches, and being an example, leading the way, being a true warrior for coaching in Hillsborough County. So we thank you, our lad Baldwin. Thank you for your friendship over the years, and your encouragement. You're always one of my biggest encouragers, and I do what I do for the same reasons that you do what you do. We touch the same people, the coaches, the athletes, and the kids. The parents. We just do it in a little different way these days, but you certainly make my job easier when I'm out there timing, or if I'm announcing. The encouragement that I get, the looks sometimes that I get, good and bad, maybe coming over to me saying, I don't know if I would have said it quite like that. I need more of that, because I do get excited when I've got that mic in front of me and I see a kid about to break 2 minutes for the first time, or going sub-5. Very exciting times on the track. But you make me better at what I'm doing, and I appreciate that. And TRC wishes you the best of luck on Saturday. I will be there, hopefully capturing some great performances as your girls and Coach Martin's Steinbrenner boys make that downhill run down the ARP and into the finish line. So again, for TRC, we salute you, Coach Baldwin.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate you.